Before we jump to the panelists, I want to share a little bit about the World University Games, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So the FISU World University Games includes the campaign to save winter. And we know that our winters are at risk due to the warming climate. The Games is using their platform to raise awareness of Save Winter. So climate change, climate justice, and how to take climate action. And the Games has chosen this theme as sort of the overall ethic in planning and hosting the 2023 Games. And the Save Winter encompasses several different components, and it includes prioritizing diversity, equity, inclusion, reducing and diverting waste, practicing responsible sourcing, reducing and mitigating their carbon footprint, catalyzing change through education, and leaving a positive legacy for the hosting communities. And this has translated into many different sustainability initiatives for the event, and that includes utilizing an electric bus, composting at all the food venues, and hosting a wind turbine installation, and among many other initiatives that you can check out. But there is a way for all of you too to participate in this. The FISU World Conference is going to happen during the University Games from January 13th through 15th, and it's an educational event focused on climate action and the intersection of winter sports and climate change. And there are virtual and in-person options. So if you're local, you can come in person. If you're calling in from somewhere else, then you can join virtually too. So there's a number of different ways to participate. And there's lots of different exciting speakers. There's athletes, there's some environmental activists. So it should be a great event. And I believe there'll be a link in the chat if you would like to sign up. It's all for free. So at this point, now that we have a sense of that, we're going to pivot to our panelists for this evening, which are all representatives of the organization Outdoorist Oath, which is an organization that helps people take action for planet and inclusion and adventure, all of which are things that clearly really align with Save Winter and with what we really hope the messaging that people take away from the World University Games is. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the panelists and see if you could each introduce yourselves and share your background in outdoor recreation and environmental issues.
Beautiful. I can go first. Hey, everybody. My name is Pattie Gonia. I am a drag queen. I'm an intersectional environmentalist, and I'm a community organizer. I help community organize more than 500,000 queer people and allies in the outdoors to get outdoors in different ways, different community opportunities. While Pattie is my drag name and drag persona, you can also refer to me as Win for this conversation. I use he, they pronouns out of drag and she, they pronouns in drag. And I hope to just share from both lived experiences today. I hope to just have a really real conversation with you and give you some actual action points to take home and take action for planet and inclusion and adventure. So with that, I pass it to Jose Gonzales, who's one of the other co-founders of the Outdoorist Oath.
Thank you so much. Gracias and saludos, everyone. My name is Jose. He, him, his. They'll respond to anything offered with joy and respect. And I am greeting you all right now from ancestral, traditional, stolen, occupied, and unceded lands of the Nisenan, Southern Maidu, and Miwok, among many others, which is at present Sacramento, California, so out on the Pacific West Coast. And my focus really is on being able to weave a lot of the aspects of outdoor equity with education, science communication, and a lot of the cultural identity work. And so I'm excited to be here with you all to engage in this conversation and hopefully offer some things that can be of service. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm going to pass it over to our illustrious Executive Director, Gabaccia.
Thank you so much, Jose and Pattie, and thank you, Fisu and Erin, for having us here today. Just really excited to participate in this conversation. And like Jose said, I have the privilege of serving as the inaugural executive director of the Outdoorist Oath. We are a fairly new organization, just launched a bit less than a year ago, even though it feels like we've been working on this for so much more longer. I play different roles in the outdoors, from a creative space, from a conservation space, from the educational space, which is what we do through the Oath, and just really grateful for every and any opportunity that we can have to get together, engage in meaningful conversations that hopefully inspire us and motivate us to continue to do this work for planet inclusion and adventure.
Wonderful. Thank you. So you've all been mentioning the organization that you just started within the past year, so brand new, Outdoorist Oath. And could you talk a little bit about what this organization is and also what led you to start it? What need were you seeing in the outdoor recreation space that made you think this was a really critical organization to get off the ground?
Jose, I'm going to nominate you. I'm excited to hear your answer.
I'll happily. I welcome the invitation, of course, with additions and compliments by my colleagues. And I was just thinking about this, and I think part of.
I hope we got a frozen Jose, a froze, if you will.
Bummer.
This is great. Until Jose joins back, I can kind of fill in just because I know time's of the essence. But yeah, we founded that Outdoorist Oath just basically because we believe that individual people hold the power and the privilege to be able to take action and form the future of the outdoors. And we think the future of the outdoors is one where everyone is welcome, where everyone that spends time outdoors realizes the responsibility and opportunity to take action for the environment, and one where we can treat each other with respect. So with that, I'm going to pass back to Jose now that we have Jose back.
Yeah, I was like, everybody just froze. Okay. So having said that, I think Pattie probably shared a few of the things that I was going to relate to as well, while adding that we acknowledge, right, there is a realization that we need systemic change at large to be able to tackle these large problems and issues that confront us, all these environmental challenges, climate change being like the biggest one that we have at the moment. But it's not the only one, because embedded to that are all of these other aspects of systemic inequities and justice-oriented work. So we know that. Through that, we know that there is the necessity for a lot of institutional and like policy level action that requires quite a few approaches and levers. And so knowing that, we also wanted to ensure that as individuals, right, we had a clear link between the actions that we took that were aligned for that systemic change, so that they wouldn't either feel there's a sense of hopelessness, because that actually benefits the system at large for you to be hopeless and not do anything, but also be so misaligned that you lose both the opportunity and I think the agency, that you think that what you're doing does matter. And so that you are taking an action and you know that it's connected to something. It's not just performative. It's not just something that then you're curious about, whether like, okay, cool, I throw in my can in the can and I don't know what that means, or where does it go, or what happens, how is that contributing to that? So I'll close this part by being able to say that when we look at systemic change and we look at the structural and the relational needs, there's also kind of that the mental models around that. And for us, it was crucial to be able to go through all of those, but note that at the individual level, being able to support and contribute to the power that individuals have, not just to change and add to their perspective about how they're active agents in this work, and also to do that in relationship with others to be able to continue to bring a stronger community.
I'll say, if there's anything else that I can add, and when I came into this process was from more of a creative design perspective, and the fact that I became the executive director kind of came from that. And so I've had just this beautiful kind of front row seat to see how the Oath evolved into becoming an organization, right? Into becoming this larger project, from an idea that encompasses all the things that Jose just mentioned and all the things that Pattie mentioned, and this, identifying this need in the outdoor community to come together and just have that space to just understand that we are not alone as individuals, and that collectively we actually do hold a lot of power, specifically as consumers and as part of the workforce and as part of the people that have the opportunity of shaping the future with what we do today.
And Gabaccia, I'll just say this to round it out. I think as it applies to you all listening here today, what we hope to do is just to inspire you to realize that you have so many more tools and resources available to you to take action, and that so much of what action looks like isn't quitting your life as an athlete or not doing what you're stoked about, but applying what you're stoked about and what you're good at to the climate movement, to the social justice movement, to build a better and different playground that is winter, to protect winter. And so we really want to give you some take-home action steps today that can help you create that personalized plan, because it's not some, go to an hour-long inspirational talk and walk away having all the answers. It's a lot of helping you reflect and have those curiosities of, okay, what am I good at? What are my identities? What can I bring to this? What do I care about? So that's what we hope to dive into today.
Thank you. That was a beautiful description of just sort of that high level, the need that you saw in the outdoor industry and the outdoor recreation space, and how Outdoor Oath fits in. And I'm wondering if you could just be a little bit more explicit. If you're a person who just saw Outdoor Oath on Instagram, or went to the website, what would you see, and what do you actually do as an organization?
It's a good question. So we're getting people outdoors. We're getting diverse people outdoors. We're doing different times where people can create community outdoors and can often create that community together. What we're also doing is doing a lot of 100% free educational sessions for people, both virtually and in person, to learn their own personalized action plan to take action to build an outdoors that cares about planet inclusion and adventure. So we're kind of an educational nonprofit that's educating everyone from individual outdoorists and people in kind of the sports space, all the way to actually educating the educators, all the way to creating that community for people to get outdoors together as well.
So I want to just draw a couple other connections for folks today too, because we are talking about three different things, and depending on what you've learned about or what you've been exposed to, maybe you've thought about these things connecting before and maybe you haven't. So tonight we're really touching on three areas: winter recreation, diversity and inclusion, and climate action. So I wonder if you each could kind of share your thoughts on how diversity and inclusion are related to saving winter and to climate action.
I'm happy to kick this one off, I think, because it's in direct alignment, right, to the work of the Outdoorist Oath in terms of when we look at planet inclusion and adventure. And what we're looking at, climate action is a planet-wide, in the policy world, what we call a wicked problem, right? It needs to be solved through multiple approaches and requires collective action as well. That it challenges us to need to address this now, knowing that at times the benefits may be delayed, but they're necessary because we're facing the consequences now. And so that has a direct impact, right, on who not just sees themselves represented in the work of what needs to be done, but gets to be in the decision-making spaces, as well as recognizing how that impact is happening inequitably. We often say in climate justice work is who gets hit first and hit worst. And we see that in terms of the consequences of climate change on island communities, for example, or sometimes we say that people of the global majority are actually they're Black and brown Native communities across the world that are feeling these impacts. And so that's where the diversity, equity, and inclusion comes in, because the reality, even if you just took the United States as an example, is that the demographics of 2050 and beyond are very different than the demographics of 1950. And so we need to be inclusive of everyone that needs to be at the proverbial table for this action, for both the action and benefits on that. And then the last one on term, you say winter recreation and we say adventure, but we acknowledge that element of recreation, call it stoke, call it whatever it is that brings this connection to you, to these outdoor places, right, to the seasonal experiences, that when you're out there, you have that feeling of connection and appreciation. And we, of course, we welcome that invitation for all of us to have that it should not be an exclusive experience. And how can we do that? Acknowledging that by providing that, actually, it's a collective benefit. And it brings us into different models than just thinking I need to protect this for myself. But if we protect this for each other, then we are protecting it for ourselves as well as having a greater community benefit.
Couldn't have said it better, Jose. Gabaccia, do you have anything else to add?
I mean, yes, what Jose said, but I think, like I'm coming at this under the agreement that everyone here listening, already cares about the planet, because there's something in this planet that, like Jose says, you enter into that natural space, which is weird to think that we have to enter into the natural space, right? Like we are nature, we are one with nature, but we still feel very divided and separated from it, to where we have to create these experiences to access it and connect to it outside of our normal lives, right? So when we enter that space, there's something already there that makes us care, because we love running on a trail, or because we love taking a walk around the park and seeing the blooms in the spring, or because we love that first snowfall so we can make angels, snow angels on the ground. And so whatever that connection is, like for me, I enter it through the lens of we already care about the planet. And then when we talk about that intersection of diversity, inclusion, and climate action, for me, once we care, we want to take action. But the diversity and inclusion piece to me, is very crucial, because historically, the communities that have kept the earth in balance in the last couple thousand years, let's say, have been the communities that have been excluded from managing land and natural resources, and have also been under oppression, right? And so all these systems that have been created that in very accelerated rates are diminishing the quality of life on Earth, these folks have the traditional knowledge to keep these resources and management practices in balance. And so to me, that's where the diversity and inclusion piece is very important, because all these communities that have not only not really participated in at the rates of participation that have diminished the quality of life on Earth, have all this knowledge that is crucial to be part of the solution, but they have also been excluded from the solutions, right? And so now we have our colleagues and our peers at Intersectional Environmentalists like really pushing forward this idea. It is intersectional, because we cannot go at this alone as a siloed group of people that just care about the environment or just care about inclusion. And what really comes to me is recently, and his name is escaping, but Jose, you were there. We had a Navajo elder talk to us at a coalition meeting with a Monumental Shift, and he was really talking about Native people and Latinx people, how we're either walking into this together or we're not gonna succeed. And I want to expand. I think about that a lot, and I think in the expansion of that is where all the communities going to come together, the LGBTQ community, the disability community, the Latinx community, the indigenous community, and we're all gonna come this together or we're not gonna win, right? So I think for me, the value is, we already know and have a lot of research of how diverse spaces are more successful, provide better solutions, more rewarding experiences for everyone involved. So from knowing that, from understanding a history of who has had the best practices for a balanced land resource management, and just for kind of that vision into the future and how we take action, I think, we take action together. And that's what makes me excited about this conversation too.
Amazing. Thank you. I want to remind everyone listening too that you can ask questions, so don't be shy of the chat. It's not every day you have the chance to ask these three folks what's on your mind. So just want to remind everyone of that. So we've been talking about kind of issues of access and just representation and diversity in outdoor spaces and how that affects the solutions we'll see for climate change. And I want to kind of bring it back a little to a lot of the folks that are listening tonight, and likely a lot of the folks that are listening to this recording who are probably athletes, winter sports athletes, who likely have grown up with access, like consistent access to their winter sport of choice, whatever that is. I know in Lake Placid, the high schools around here, they can do luge or bobsled programming as a high school athlete, which is just not an experience that most high school students have access to, regardless of if you live somewhere where it's winter or not. So for all of these athletes listening and tuning in, what kind of things can they do, or anyone, regardless of if you consider yourself an athlete, what can you do to make this winter sport, winter recreation space more inviting and welcoming to people of diverse backgrounds? I'm curious if you all have some advice and suggestions for folks around that.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think about this a lot because I think I want to be, really real with people on that, like my story in my life, and I want to share some of my identity. I grew up at the really interesting intersection of being queer in the Midwest, where there were not that many queer people around me, but also I have an identity of being white and male passing, and came at the space with a lot of privilege and had a lot of outdoor access. And I think that what's really important to always remember is that like people don't have the same access that oftentimes we have to these natural spaces, right? So when we think about what we can do, I think it's oftentimes the really simple but really in front of our face things. And what I mean is there's nothing like the power of an invitation, inviting someone who's different than ourselves outdoors with us. There is nothing like treating another person how you'd want to be treated. There is nothing like taking action in your unique world to just change things 1%. So what I mean is like, I don't want y'all to walk away from this conversation and become wonder advocates, wonder allies. I want y'all to realize that you have so many powerful connections with your communities and the outdoor access and the spaces and the people to really make change. And maybe that looks like volunteering with a local org that's local to your area, that's working to get a diverse community outdoors. Maybe that means, okay, cool, you are a snow sport athlete. Maybe it's teaching other people in your community that your same sport. Again, make it fun and exciting for you. I want you to make taking action something that's sustainable and something that brings you joy. Like I have a friend who's an amazing, amazing chef. And all she does at every different like queer community thing we do or climate rally we do, she just brings baked goods. And she is such an important piece of the puzzle. And she's using and sharing her skill and her talent with our community. And she's such a beautiful part of that, right? Like when we look at how like social and environmental change happens, I think it takes lots of different people. It's not just the people that are the frontline leaders. It takes healers and weavers and people who work behind the scenes and builders and artists and athletes and people to disrupt in their different ways or people to build community in different ways. And I have no doubt that y'all, again, if you're listening to this, care a lot. But I think it's taking that next step to just make it a part of your like daily life and action of just giving back where you can, taking action where you can. And to give yourself the permission also to like fail at things. Because I think when I came into this space, I came into kind of life with Pattie Gonia and life with the Oath at a very rapid pace. And I think what I didn't do that I wish I would have done enough is just given myself more time to try and fail. It's just like in sports when we have to train our muscles to get strong at something. We're not going to necessarily be good at it at the first time. The first time you try to maybe take action in a different way or speak up or, use your privilege in a different way, you might not necessarily totally get it right. So I think that we need to like make space for imperfect action for ourselves as well as like make space for other people to try as well. And we need to honor the try more than cancel culturing each other out of existence. So I would just say like, don't be afraid to try, take action on the daily and really just use like your unique talents and abilities and what brings you joy and apply it to what you care about. That was a lot of words.
I'll quickly add this in Gabaccia because I think I want to highlight what Pattie mentioned in terms of the power of invitation. So, with research, research has established a lot of barriers. And in other words, like, yes, there's some tangible barriers around costs, right? Like how much will particular gear or equipment cost to be able to partake in this activity, entry fees, all of that kind of stuff, transportation and whatnot. But an intangible one that comes up often is the sense of feeling welcome. And so what does the power of invitation do to support that space of belonging? And that you're doing it, the power of invitation comes by doing everything you would to be friendly, be supportive, be inviting. And I would say the additional step for many of us that might exist within a space of privilege is to be able to acknowledge and work with that so that you don't come at it from any paternalistic saviorism sense of like, well, you poor individual that have no access, I will save you and give you this. And it seems kind of, I say that with a bit of silliness, but it's important, because what you want to be able to do is be able to create a space of that equitable belonging, not just perpetuate what we call types of inequities, because that is true across communities in terms of who they see making decisions and for what reasons and intent. And I'll close by saying that with Pattie's point that don't let inaction be your own barrier to do something because you're afraid of messing up, of making a mistake, of failing, of not doing it right, of not knowing everything about how you're supposed to approach it. Because yes, the athlete training model is a perfect example. You know that the problem isn't stumbling on the first one; is deliberately doing it wrong or not doing it at all. That doesn't lead to that growth-oriented strength building.
Beautiful. I honestly don't know what else to add. I love the focus on the invitation. I can personally not relate to like this invitation into winter sports, because even those even those invitations seem very nuanced and have to do a lot with like, it's not as easy as when I invite someone backpacking. We're like, I have an extra backpack, and as long as they have some good shoes, we can go. It's a little more nuanced at that. So I love that for the folks that have kind of that privilege and that ability to really create those invitations. I know that, furthermore, there's organizations, not the Oath, but other organizations that are really dedicated to bringing more people outdoors. And there may be also opportunities in volunteering for those organizations, lending a hand, and just seeing, again, I think Pattie has mentioned this, tapping into your community, seeing where there's those gaps, and make yourself that bridge, right? And making sure that, beyond the invitation and the volunteering and all of that, just being a welcoming person. When you see someone that looks different, know that, I'm sometimes the only person that looks like me in many of these spaces. And it's just nice to have someone wave at you. It's like, oh, I am acknowledged. I am welcome. Because it's not like we are colorblind. Like we can see when someone is not like the others in one way or another, whether it's because you have different gear or different abilities or different ways of being in the world. So, but really, really appreciate the focus on the invitation for sure.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And I was writing down notes while you all were talking. And I think what you all spoke about, that was just, I think, a mindset shift for athletes, is that like the experience of being outside. I think for a lot of athletes, it's really connected to training and to like you have, training you have to do, you have goals you have to meet, you're trying to push yourself, you're trying to, be faster or more skilled or whatever it is. And what you all are talking about is really a mindset shift, is the outdoors is a space where you can do more than that. And I think that kind of focus of that being welcoming and inviting folks to join you, like it is a mindset shift where, enjoying your sport is not always about pushing yourself athletically, that you can kind of approach it different ways too, that can bring other people along with you. So
Yeah,
thanks.
Well, to say to that, because I think what you brought up is so amazing. I think what's really interesting to think about too, and I hope that like everyone listening can like receive this as like a compliment, but I think we here don't just see you all as just athletes. I think it's a big part of your life right now, but y'all, you will be parents someday. You will be community members someday. You will sit on boards of athletic things someday. Some of you will become coaches. And these things matter at every stage of life, not just your now, but your future. And I think it's about what kind of future do you want to build for the next generation of athletes outdoors. When you look at your brown and black and fellow queer underrepresented athletes, and you see how hard the current environment is for them right now, do you want that for the next generation? Maybe some of y'all here are female as well, and you see the lack of like equality too across that. I think there's things everywhere where like we know change is needed, but sometimes we just feel really stuck as to how to make that change. And I think it just comes when we take action and activate, because something that Jose said in this past little conversation block that I think it lives on my shoulder all the time is that like inaction is an action of itself. So what I mean is not taking action, doing nothing is doing something. And so many of y'all as athletes also have social platforms and have people that listen to you and have a lot of respect in this space. And I think there's, with great power comes great responsibility. I've learned in growing my community and my following online that's now bigger than I ever thought it would be. There's a lot of privilege associated to that. And I think I used to feel a lot of guilt and shame about that privilege. But because of people like Jose and Gabaccia in my life, I've really realized that like instead of feeling privilege or as shame, I see privilege as an opportunity to take action, an invitation to take action, and something I don't feel bad about, but that I acknowledge as a reason why I want to shake shit up and want to do things imperfectly, but do things rather than do nothing. So yeah, I just want y'all to see privilege as an invitation, and that like the power of allyship really has the power to change the world.
Yeah, I would say it's think about how you can wield and yield your privilege according to the context, and in service of what, or as we say at the Outdoorist Oath, how you bring your whole holistic self. So
amazing, thank you. I love the interplay here between these like higher level concepts of using your platform and acknowledging your privilege, and then just like pairing that with the very concrete things that you can do, like post on your social media platform, let someone borrow your gear, like invite someone to join you outside. I feel like sometimes the actions to like act in service of these big high level concepts are very concrete and actually not that complicated at the end of the day. So I love that you all are kind of bringing both levels of that into the conversation. Okay, so we'll shift gears a little bit. And of course, this is all related to what we're talking about, but the theme of Save Winter, we're just thinking of all the athletes out there or just people out there. Not everyone has access to winter, not necessarily because it could just be because of where they live. Like geographically, where you live, you don't experience winter. Like that is millions of billions of people in the world. So thinking of this theme of saving winter, how can we make that matter to people, kind of regardless of if they experience winter, if they live in an ecosystem that has winter? How can we make this theme matter to folks, kind of regardless of their background?
Yeah, well, and I mean, I think I relate to that question deeply because I grew up in a place, quote unquote, without what I would call textbook winter, where, of course, we had winter, but it wasn't like we had activities related to winter that took us outdoors because there was snow, right? It was more like hurricane season. So maybe we did not spend time outside, which is very different from, everyone at FISU who very obviously has this deep relationship and connection to the winter that we know as like this white winter of snow. And I mean, I think it really all comes back to ecosystems and understanding the interconnectedness of them. And we do use this language when we talk about the oath and how we come together as, planet inclusion and adventure being each an ecosystem of its own right. And so when we think about the earth and the different ecosystems, and this is, I mean, really rooted in education and comprehension of how our natural world works, you realize that, it's kind of this butterfly effect of like the little thing that happens here really has an effect on the other side of the world, or can have an effect on the other side of the world. So For example, I didn't grow up in a town where there was winter, but I did grow up in a town that had the most polluted river in the world. And when you think about waterways and interconnectedness and how those things come into play, even just the life cycle of water, right? Like how this water just kind of goes up and down back to us. When you gain that understanding of the connectedness, you know that, for me, the snow in the Himalayas is as important as the snow in the Rockies. Because ultimately, from what we can comprehend, is such a small portion of this larger, magical, working ecosystem that is the Earth. And then, the multiverse, if you want to get that large, it's just, once we have that kind of, we feel that in our bodies, once we feel we have a little grasp of that and understanding of how that is important, then we don't, again, like we care enough at that point. We care enough. We cannot look away. We understand that what happens here affects the snowfall there. The snowfall there will also affect, the rivers all the way over here. And so it really comes down to understanding where you are and how these things are connected, in the same way that we talk about inclusion and how we are all connected as humans and how we need each other, right? So each ecosystem needs its other counterparts to fully come to fruition and to become the thriving meadows that we so much like to also talk about when we talk about the ocean.
I love that, Gabaccia. I think, to piggyback off of what you shared, man, I think at the end of the day, for me, it just all comes back to when we think about like saving our winters, or what I would like to propose as the rebrand is just save the seasons, is that we fight for what we love, right? When we get outdoors, when we connect to nature, when we spend time with this thing, well, then we know how worth it is to fight for it. Y'all that are listening to this know how valuable it is to fight for winter, because you're connected to the outdoors. Your sport relies on it. Your life has really been shaped and molded by this thing. And so you have a relationship with it. I want that for everybody. And I think right now there's a lot of people that do not have the opportunity to connect with nature in the same ways that maybe y'all do, or maybe I do. And so when we think about like, this intersection of like diversity in this conversation and how we get people to care about winter that aren't associated with winter, it is about that connectedness, right? If we look at nature, ecosystems that are disconnected die. They die. But ecosystems that are connected realize that everything, and this, Gabaccia, goes back to your point, ecosystems that are connected realize that everything has a role to play, and that this plant over here in this meadow holds the soil together for this tree over here, and that they're connected by mycelium, and everything is equally as important. And if you take something out, again, like that ecosystem falls apart. Think about Yellowstone and the wolves. I think that's a very common story that people know about. When you take out a keystone species, that ecosystem completely falls apart. So I want us to all realize that like we all have a role to play. And I think that like y'all's role to play is to really advocate for climate change through saving our winters. It's the thing that you and the communities around you care the most about. So what a beautiful way to connect and reach those people, right? For different communities, it's going to be different, but I think you can invite those different people in when you've invited them into those worlds, when you've invited new and different people in and shown them how beautiful it is and how worth it is to fight for, right? So again, be that bridge, be that connecting piece of the meadow. And I think that's really valuable. And I think another thing I want to bring up, that's the final point that I'll make, is that when we think about like saving our winters and like what we can do, right? My brain very quickly, because of just the media and the state of the world, my brain can go to a doom and gloom place. But I think I've really challenged myself to really see the other truth that exists, in that like when we think about climate change, yes, we can focus on all the problems, but we can also get stoked to get creative on the solutions and what is possible. And I think by building a more diverse outdoor and snow sport culture, by inviting new people in, by you leveraging your privilege and your power and your opportunity and what you're good at and applying it to climate, like we can get really creative. We can build a better future. And that's what gets me excited with this work, because if I focus on the doom and gloom, it unmotivates me. Again, it uninspires me. This is what Jose was talking about really early on. It's a lot of the energy of people want me to feel that way. The systems of power want me to feel that way that are destroying this planet. A lot of these systems in capitalism, but also like systems under community resilience, she's shown me that like things happen when people take action and when people take action together. So my final invitation to you is to get creative with people around you. Like, don't go the road alone. When we think about taking action, I don't want you to just think, okay, it's me against the world. I have to like invite 20 people into the outdoors this year. I need to like do these things. No, take action together. Think about getting you or 2 or 3 of your friends together and just maybe doing like an intro to snowboarding day for anyone that wants to, that follows you on Instagram, or just, hey, we're going to hang out at this like ski hill, like whatever. Find different ways to just do community outreach. Or if that scares the crap out of you, because that does for some people, maybe you can do a capital campaign and raise money on your social media for an organization you're connected to. Or maybe you can talk to people that you're going to be on boards of or future boards of and get them stoked on something. Or maybe you can like elevate the voice of a Black athlete, by like amplifying their voice. So I want you to think about taking action together. It's not you against the world, it's you with people. Yeah.
Amazing. I also love how your responses kind of came full circle about like getting creative about climate solutions. And I feel like a lot of places where people are creative is when they're recreating outside or on a pair of skis or somewhere where you're not looking at your screen and you're enjoying an experience with people together and immersed in the outdoors. And I think that helps us be creative and like find community and to help us address climate change too. So there's so many connections that we found tonight. We will have a few minutes for questions from the audience, but the last question I want to pose for the panelists from me and from us is, what is one takeaway or call to action you'd like to leave the audience with this evening?
One of the and during our workshops, one of the things I often like to say is how you can be radical and revolutionary. And the ask to that is an invitation both to challenge, right? When we talk about mental models, is like, what do we immediately associate, and do we limit ourselves only to that, versus how can we be expansive, as Gabaccia is mentioning, so we know we can be inclusive of more, while also getting to redefine and reclaim some of the ways in which we approach this work. So I say this because when it comes to radical and revolutionary, the first mental picture may be something from the outside being disruptive, right? Something that is kind of like causing chaos to the established system. And my invitation to that is, when we look at the root of the word of those two words, is that the root of radical is roots. So I often say it's not out there, it's like right here. So how are you rooted in like the core of this work? And ask yourself, like, do you feel that? Because we have sayings such as like, a tree that's not rooted will fall in the wind. So that means that when we are facing the challenges of climate action, of everything that we're like challenge ourselves with, we need to be rooted pretty strongly in that work. And for revolutionary, it's revolutions, it's cycles. And so how are you in service of supporting regenerative cycles? Because those are all the things that ecology and nature tells us, right? If you want some thrivability, this is what needs to be in place. If you're only on some exponential extractive system, then we're feeling the consequences of that now. And so I would say that as a takeaway, whether your actions are singular, individual, and seemingly small, or whether they're at a scale that include at large, is you ask yourself to be able to say, in service of what, and how am I being revolutionary by really supporting regenerative cycles right now? Because it's when we break those, it's when we don't honor those, that we find ourselves in the environmental problems that we have.
Thank you for that, Jose. Absolutely love the framing of regenerative cycles and regenerative. I think I've been hearing that a lot when it comes to agriculture, and I just really love the idea of something that can self-sustain into perpetuity. So thank you for offering that framing. And with that, I personally just want to invite everyone that whether you're stuck with what you want to do next, or don't know where to start, or you feel like you have a clear vision and you know where you're headed, I would still like to invite you all to take an Outdoorist Oath workshop. Come spend some time with this crew and new trainers here in 2023, and just commit to planet inclusion adventure. Come reflect with us, come create your action plan, and we would really love to see more folks from the winter sports community, from the athlete community, not just you, bring your family, bring your friends, bring your frenemies. Everyone is invited, and we would really love to have you and to hopefully support your journey of allyship and taking action for the planet and inclusion.
Yeah, love it. And those workshops are free. They're literally free. They're online. They happen all the time, about every other month next year. So you can sign up just on outdooristoath.org and you can get more info. But we'd love to see you and totally invite you to come to one of those trainings and come hang out with us in person too. You can follow us on Instagram at Outdoorist Oath, and you can see when we pop off in real life as well. But okay, the thing I'll leave you with, my one piece of action invitation for you is just to have fun with it. I think when it comes to this stuff, it is so easy to think so seriously when really the solutions that bring the most joy are the most sustainable, right? So I want you to have fun with it. I want you to think about, again, this isn't you throwing away everything you know you're good at and somehow becoming wonder advocate. This is you using what gives you stoke in your life and getting other people stoked with you. Yeah. There's so many ways you can get involved. So a huge thing I'm thinking of right now for all y'all is Jeremy Jensen, who's an amazing snowboarder, founded Protect Our Winters. And that's an amazing organization y'all can champion and be involved with. I'm sure y'all know about it, but there's so many also local organizations that are probably like effing step up in your local community and are kicking ass, and like get involved with them however you can. And I hope too, like when we're having fun, I still want you to just have fun in your own life too, because I think so much of your athlete life is centered around trying to seek perfection and training, and just like Erin, you were talking about. And so I want you to keep your love and connection to nature alive, because I know in my life, I've had a severed connection to nature when it's become work for me. And I think for a lot of y'all, it might be work for you right now. And so I just want you to keep that love alive for you, because then you're going to fight for nature as well.
Amazing. Thank you. I know for myself and folks tuning in from the Adirondacks tonight, it is pouring down rain tonight. So not only is that motivation, but just hearing all of you and kind of feeling the sense of community in all this work is inspiring too. But we do have a question from the audience, from Hannah. And they asked, what kinds of challenges and barriers have you seen as a new organization with increasing access and education with diverse communities?
It's interesting that it's framed from the like challenge and barrier perspective. And I think that, the biggest challenge that we've had as a new organization is managing everyone's time and making sure that we can do more of it. We've had a really, I would say, a really beautiful privilege of launching very strongly and having been able to reach over 2,500 people to take our free workshops during our first year. We definitely wish we could have done more. I think for us, I think that probably has been a big part of the barrier and challenge. As the new organization that we are, we have had the privilege of offering this education for free to individuals and the public. So we've been subsidized through individual donations and sponsorships from different brands and other organizations. So we've just been really privileged in having that, because resource is normally the biggest barrier to anything in the way that our capitalist world works. So I feel just really grateful that we haven't had that be a barrier for us. I think I do see, and I'll just bring that up because I do see that in the larger network of organizations that we're a part of, that resources tend to be really a big barrier, increasing access to education, specifically with diverse communities. There's you know, there's obviously many different dimensions of what that looks like, from time to actual resources to actual having access to materials. That's why we try to, everything that we do, and that's kind of our promise, is that it will be free for individuals through our organization always. So we're really trying to break that barrier from day one, which would have not been possible with the outstanding support that we received from the outdoors community when we launched.
Yeah, I would just add, Gabaccia, to what you said. I think in the context of like, for people that might be interested in like forming nonprofits or, you know, being a part of nonprofits, is really truly just thinking about like, how can you have diverse leadership and leaders in the org so that diverse communities can get there? And I think that's something that we've been lucky at the Outdoorist Oath, is to be founded by diverse people for diverse people and allies. And I think that like, I want to encourage y'all to foster those connections with people unlike yourself in the long term, so that when it comes time to take action together, to form that nonprofit, to do that thing with an organization, or to come together, it doesn't feel like tokenization, but it feels rooted in relationship, right? Because with relationship, we have trust, and without it, we have tokenization. So I think just know that maybe people from diverse backgrounds, I mean, I want to spit it to you really real, we might be more hesitant to be reached out to by white allies at first, because it's a matter of like, can trust be formed? But I want y'all to know that like, when relationships can be formed across difference and different backgrounds, then like really truly doing work together is possible. And so I just want to encourage you to ask the people around you who come from diverse backgrounds, like what support can look like. Not to say, hey, I want to do this, but to ask them a question, like, what can support look like for you right now? What can I do? And again, not to put that burden on them, but just to put that opportunity out there. And you might get a mixed bag. You might have someone be like, nothing. You might have someone be like, actually, you can do X, Y, and Z. But I think that like, at the end of the day, it's rooted in relationship more than just like doing things. So I know the Outdoorist Oath wouldn't have founded if it wouldn't have been for relationship building first.
Thank you. That was great. I'm like thinking and processing at the same time. But I know we are right about at our time. I just want to thank you all for spending your time and energy on this tonight, both the folks who joined and the panelists. I know I can't really imagine the FISU World University Games happening without this conversation at the forefront. So I just love that this is happening before, as sort of a like a tone set for folks, and then for folks listening after to have access to this. This conversation is critical and needed in the winter sports and winter recreation space. So thank you all for contributing your voices to it. And I know I am feeling inspired myself. So I hope other folks are too. Are there any last words or last things you want to share before we sign off for the night?
And just thank you, Erin. We really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, everyone that came tonight. We appreciate you. And yeah, really excited for everyone to watch it virtually. Thank you for joining. And yeah, we really appreciate it. And again, you can sign up for a free Oath workshop if you want. So keep your eyes peeled.
Amazing.
Awesome.
And enjoy the games.
Let the games begin.
Let the games
Thank you
begin.
all.
Thanks, everybody. Have
Thanks,
a great
everybody.
night.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so
Erin.
much. See you later.